What's going on, guys? Coming at you today with a video about the PlayStation 5. In this video, I'm going to break down everything from the hardware and spec to the new console's capability. Stay tuned. Okay, so the PlayStation 5 is coming out on November 12th and will feature two different editions. First up, we have the standard edition with the 4K UHD Blu-ray drive, which will retail for $500, and then a digital-only version for $400. Note that these are identical in every way, specs-wise. The only difference is that one has a disc drive and the other one does not. So, if you own any discs for PlayStation 4, or have any movies, etc. that you wish to use with this, then I recommend you get the standard edition with the disc drive. And of course, the standard edition can still utilize digital games like always. Okay, before we get into specs, let's talk about the system itself. The PS5 is roughly 15 inches tall, which is about 3 or so inches taller than the PlayStation 4 Pro, and can stand vertically or lay down using its stand. The stand is included in the box for both versions and can be used while the system is in both positions, also adding stability to it while it's vertical. It features a USB-A and a USB-C port on the front, with the C port being used to charge the controller. It also has two additional USB-A ports on the back. The PS5 is backwards compatible with the PlayStation 4 and has been confirmed to support the vast majority of the 4,000 plus PS4 games. Roughly 99% of them as reported by Sony directly. Which games won't work and exactly why is still unknown, but for all we know, that could jump up to all of them by the time the system actually comes out, or a patch or so a couple months later. It's also important to note that all PS4 games will benefit greatly from the PS5's superior hardware. Faster processing and loading, boosted graphics and frame rates, etc. This is true for both the physical and the digital version. The PlayStation 5 will also now feature what is called the PlayStation Plus Collection, which will allow PlayStation Plus subscribers to play all of the PlayStation 4's greatest hits for no additional cost. Simply download the game of your choice and rock on. You can use the DualShock 4 controllers on the PlayStation 5, but only while playing PS4 or lower games. Because of the new changes to the PS5's DualSense Controller, it's impossible to use DualShock 4s for PS5 games. The PlayStation 5 is also compatible with PlayStation VR and all of its current games. Now, let's talk about current games and the PS5's Crossgen Support. Games that release on both the PS4 and the PS5 will grant you a free upgrade to the PlayStation 5 version as long as you currently own the PlayStation 4 version, just like they did from the PS3 to the PS4 when it first launched. Now, this is 100% on the developers themselves, of course, and may not apply to every single game. But a few upcoming games that have 100% been confirmed to do this right now are Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Watch Dogs Legion, Cyberpunk 2077, Marvel's Avengers, and Outriders. Now note, I'm only talking about new games that offer a legit PlayStation 5 version. I'm not talking about games such as Fortnite, Warframe, etc. that will be ported over because they are considered PS4 games and of course will already work on the PS5. What would a console be without its controller? This time around we have the DualSense Controller. It's near identical in size and shape to the PlayStation 4 controller. They simply pulled the top and bottom parts out to give it a more rounded look. It features haptic feedback, which is similar to Rumble, but is a lot more precise and allows for far more unique sensations. For example, a driving game could simulate what it would feel like to drive across grass, gravel, dirt, mud, asphalt, etc. It also features adaptive triggers, which apply different levels of resistance depending on what you're doing. The example given was when you pull back on a bow and arrow, it will provide a steadily increasing level of resistance to make it feel more realistic. The share button is back, but it is now called the create button, and it will, quote, allow players to create epic game content to share with the world or keep for themselves, unquote. However, to exactly what extent, we do not currently know. The controller has a built-in microphone, which will allow you to chat with friends even without having a headset plugged in. And, as I stated above, the controller is now USB-C rather than micro USB, which will allow for vastly faster charge times. The light bar has now been pulled down and surrounds the touchpad instead of being on top, like with the DualShock 4. Overall, I'm happy with the new controller so far, and I'm extremely glad that they kept it relatively close to the PS4's design, so we know it'll be comfortable. When I first saw the design, I was a little bit concerned about its actual size. I was afraid it was going to be bloated or bulky, which luckily it is not. Okay, let's move on to what everybody wants to know, and that's specs. I'll try my best to not get too overly technical. If I confuse anybody, feel free to mention in the comments and I will try to break it down as best I can. I know not everyone is computer savvy, so all right, let's get into this. The PlayStation 5 features a custom SSD, or solid-state drive, instead of a traditional hard drive. An SSD basically has no moving parts, whereas a normal hard drive does. It's literally a mechanical drive with a bunch of moving parts. So the processing speed is limited to those moving parts. A solid-state drive, or SSD, works off of flash memory, like a thumb drive, flash drive, etc. So it's much faster processing. The SSD in the PlayStation 5 is going to be 825 gigabytes at launch and has a 12-channel interface, which allows it to process 5.5 gigabytes of data per second. Let's compare this to the PlayStation 4 for a frame of reference. The PS4's hard drive processes 50 to 100 megabytes per second, while the PlayStation 5's SSD processes 5.5 gigabytes per second. So, the PS4 loads about 1 gigabyte of data every 20 seconds, and the PlayStation 5 can load 2 gigabytes of data every 0.27 seconds. This will make an enormous difference in load times, whether it be booting up the system, loading a game, reloading after death, or even fast traveling. What once took several seconds to a minute will now essentially be instantaneous. However, there are other benefits to this as well. You know those sections of hallways or tight corridors, or that long elevator ride that you see in video games? Yeah. The developers do this to transition into the next section of the level or area because current hardware just can't handle massive areas, rendering, etc. This will no longer be the case with solid-state drives because of the vastly faster processing will allow for not only less transition type areas but also for vastly larger maps, levels, and areas, thus opening the door for developers to do more and have a lot more freedom with far less restrictions. All right, moving right along, let's talk about the GPU and the graphics. The GPU is 10.3 teraflops compared to the PlayStation 4's 4.2 teraflops, and it runs at a 2.23 gigahertz frequency, which is well over twice that of the PlayStation 4 Pro. The PS5 will support full 4K resolution with up to 120 frames per second if your TV supports it. It will also support 8K gaming, but don't expect many, if any, games to actually take advantage of this anytime soon. Also, keep in mind that although these benchmarks are supported, it's entirely up to the developers themselves on whether or not to utilize them to their full potential. The GPU also supports ray tracing, which is the ability to simulate in real time how individual rays of light and sound will realistically bounce around within a game's world to create more lifelike images and experiences. We saw a great example of this in Epic's Unreal Engine 5 demonstration. Alright, let's move on to the CPU, or Central Processing Unit, essentially a computer's brain. The PlayStation 5 will have an AMD Zen 2 with 8 cores and a frequency of 3.5 gigahertz, which is almost 3 times the power of the PlayStation 4 Pro. It also features 16 gigs of RAM, which is the memory used to process along with your CPU, for those who don't know. That is literally twice the amount of the PlayStation 4 Pro with its 8 gigs of RAM. The PlayStation 5 uses a new variable frequency approach, which will allow both the CPU and the GPU to automatically adjust themselves when and as needed to reduce overheating and even loud noises. The CPU even has a new Smart Shift feature, which will allow the CPU to push any unused computing power directly to the GPU for increased graphical performance. This ensures that they both work together to be most effective 100% of the time. It will also eliminate frame rate drops, rendering hiccups, and lag in most cases. Now that we've talked about graphics and processing power, let's talk about audio. The PlayStation 5 has a brand new 3D audio. It has a custom processing resource dedicated specifically to audio called the Tempest Engine, and it promises a vibrant and complex 3D audio, the likes of which we've never heard before in a video game. This will allow for more intense and immersive audio experiences where you'll hear, for example, raindrops falling all around you and even above or below you. It'll even make for more precise sounds from distinct locations in the game world. The console will also come with 5 unique sound profiles that you can use to set up your own custom experience depending on your personal sound setup. And Mark Cerny has also stated that they may release more sound profiles in the future if they are needed and or requested. Now, of course, this audio experience is best used with a surround sound system or a higher end headset that supports it. And that's it, guys. The full breakdown of the PlayStation 5, its features and specs. Are you excited to get your hands on this beast? Let me know in the comments below. I'm going to be doing a separate video for all of the currently known PlayStation 5 games that are going to be available at launch and in, the first few months of its launch that are currently known. I'll link that in the description below, so keep an eye out for that. Anyways, thank you for watching. I will see you all next time. Later.